the other coast.
So it's actually already 12 o'clock here. So you said good morning, and I was like,
Yeah, not so much,
"Hey."
huh? I've
Okay.
done a couple of things this morning, but I'm behind you.
Well, hey there, Susie. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Confident Sober Women podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today and just share your experience and with the audience. And we're going to have a phenomenal conversation about all the things that you're involved in and kind of see where it takes us. So I'm going to turn the mic over to you and let you share a little bit more about your story, and then we're going to chat.
Hey, Shelby, it is so nice to meet you. This is Susie from Long Beach, California. So we are on the opposite coast this morning. I do have a story. And well, sometimes I don't think my story is like a super big story. It is a story that I think probably quite a few others can relate to. I, I enjoyed drinking wine for most of my adult life, right? And in fact, though, at the same time, simultaneously, this is a bit my story, I was very interested in health, very interested in fitness. So, for example, I've run 5 marathons, and as you know, that takes a whole lot of effort. I've had some really bad long runs after drinking just a few glasses of wine the night before. So I don't know, around, 40-ish, I started taking some breaks from alcohol. Sometimes it was because, okay, I'm training for this thing and there's just no way I can make it. For example, if I had a vacation in the middle of my marathon training, that was, kind of a dagger for loss there. So I would start sometimes to take a week off or even a couple of weeks off. I was also told by a physician one time, because I had a little bit of a high liver enzymes, to take a month off. And I was like, what the heck are you talking about? So anyhow, over the years, I sort of felt like I became an expert at taking breaks from alcohol. And, I would take even up to a month off. I took 2 entire Lent seasons off, which I gave myself a very large pat on the back for. I made it about 50 days, close-ish to that, 2 times. And then absolutely celebrated with popping the bottle of champagne and, happy Easter, all of that. So, yeah, what happened next? I was just, I thought pretty good at taking breaks. And, that helped me accomplish things actually when I did. Interesting, isn't it? So, yeah. So, enter, pandemic life, and, somewhere mid pandemic, I sort of got over the whole party thing of eating more. We baked a lot of cookies here in our household. We drank extra wine, all the things. So I signed up for an extended break this time. I just joined the Sober Sis crowd, actually. And I did a 4-month coursework. I just signed up the whole day. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm good at this. I'm going to do a little longer break. This is good. So here I am today. And if you told me that I would be here talking about and promoting the alcohol-free lifestyle, I'd kind of say, yeah, you must be nuts. That was just a few years ago. I found for me, Shelby, that I began to feel a little more pulled to that alcohol-free lifestyle over here than I was to drinking the wine over here. Interesting. I think in the past, the breaks I took before that, number one, I never had any fun with it. Okay. It was always like, okay, I'm taking this dreary break and then we're going to celebrate with alcohol at the end. Yeah. And number two, I didn't learn anything. And so, taking courses like the Sober Sis that offered, and I know you have quite a few offerings too, especially for those that are a little further along in the journey. I learned things that I really didn't see before. And I think when you take that longer extended break, you do see a lot of marketing that you never saw before, right? When you walk through the stores and you see 500 towels that say, come wine with me, or, what have you. And yeah, that's, it really is screaming at you that actually becoming a non-drinker is not an option. for you. That's what that told me, I think. So to me, I had to feel like an alcohol-free lifestyle was valid. And when I started getting back out more, because, for some of us, we had this practice during COVID, there wasn't a lot going on, had its own challenges, certainly. But I know the first time I got out really to do much was probably around 6 months alcohol free. And I was pretty nervous about it. Ended up having a great time, went away for like a ski weekend. The girls were all great, but yeah, that's kind of a big deal, right? Because there's the après ski, there's the dinners out, there's even lunch on the mountain comes with cocktails, right? So anyhow, it was a great time, but I did discover that the restaurants and the venues, they have so much to learn. And I don't think it's really intentional by most of them because, I didn't know this either. But yeah, they have so much to learn with offering you something nice. So, a lot of times they didn't have anything. There were a couple places that did, and that was fantastic. But my friends would get these like sexy cocktail glasses, and I had, if it, some juice in a really large water cup, right?
Mhm.
kind of a pet peeve of mine now. Yeah, so I just came home from that thinking, okay, there's just a lot of education. There's a lot more. And I'm going to go ahead and add in too, because I was talking about, different things that in the past weren't available. Like I never had fun with it. And another thing was that I didn't really learn a lot of the external things that you're teaching in your programs about the marketing and about how alcohol affects women different than men. And then the third thing I'm going to say is the alcohol-free beverage industry. It just wasn't there before, right? So I'm actually not sure how long you've been at this, but this is such a gift, I think, the alcohol-free beverage industry. And I do understand that it's not 100% for everyone. For me and people like me, it is a complete game changer when going out and even at home.
Okay, Susie, thank you so much for sharing all of that. I really appreciate your story. And it's I wouldn't say it's unique. I'm sure there's many people just like you. However, it's different than mine for sure. And it's a different than sort of the, I'm doing air quote unquote, like sort of traditional, problem drinker route, possibly. It's just different, and you got sober a little bit later in life, which is kind of cool too. So, and also I love that you were already a healthy person. Like I've also run 5 marathons. I know what it's like to train for those. I was sober long before I ever tried that, but I know what it takes to do that. And so you were living this healthy lifestyle, but alcohol was still a big part of it. And alcohol, as you know now, I'm sure, and you educate people as well, is completely unhealthy for our bodies, right? And even if you are not a problem drinker, really no one should consume it. It's made from poison. It's doctored up and colored and flavored up so that we can enjoy it, in a good way. But it's still made from that ethyl alcohol, which is a poison. So no part of it is good for us.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, my favorite line my friend said was, she was like, "This is what I'm going to say at the wedding. I am no longer drinking ethanol."
I love that.
Ding ding.
Yeah. I mean, but people, I don't think most people really even know that. And if they do, they just sort of dismiss it, right? Because it's not a big deal to them because they don't have a problem. And that's fine. I mean, around in my circles, I mean, we say things like, it's not my business. Your relationship with alcohol isn't any of my business. Mine with me is mine. And I know for sure that I am I have a problem with alcohol and drugs. And so I cannot consume them in any form. So I love though that you took the time it took and you did what it took to get to that stage. So I don't know if you read Holly Whitaker's book, Quit Like a Woman, but I kind of devoured that when it came out, when she first put it out a couple of years ago. And it was my first real, maybe not first, but it was a big eye opener for me because I was probably like, I don't know, what was that, 5 years ago or so,
Yeah.
about about more around sober curiosity. And because I came from like an abstinence only background. I mean, I got sober in 21 years ago and there wasn't really much choice except for 12-step programs and rehab and that's what we had. There was
Yeah.
no quit lit or online programs or the kinds of things that we're engaged in today. And so it was like an abstinence only philosophy, which I personally believe in, but I also understand that that's not everybody's way, and that's completely fine.
Mhm.
But this is
Mhm.
probably why we saw like what we call chronic relapsers, right? Because there wasn't sort of this mainstream discussion around gray area drinking and sober curiosity and what that looks like and what it can look like. And Holly Whitaker's book was like the first one that sort of pointed that out to me and sort of shared, she sort of did this dance, and I'm paraphrasing, like about like, she would kind of drink and then it wouldn't go well for her. And then so she would add in like start doing yoga, and then she started focusing on her nutrition, and like it just was a very slow walk. And I think that's some people's journey. And it's very interesting to me how a lot of women, and particularly through programs like Sober Sis, I know Jen, she's been on the podcast a couple of times and I love her work.
Yeah.
It's opening the doors up for alcohol-free lifestyle for people who maybe never even considered that way.
Yeah. And I'm just going to be honest. I was just talking to somebody else that maybe had more of a similar experience that you did and had stopped quite a few years ago when there was one choice, right? AA. And for you, was it mostly men at that point too?
It was mostly
Or
men, and I live in like in a suburb. It's a little bit of a rural county. It's not completely rural, but it's like a outskirts. So I'm not, super close to the city or a big metropolitan area. So our
yeah.
town is smallish. So it was, yes, mostly men and
Mhm.
a lot of kind of like old countrymen. And I really
Yeah.
struggled with I struggled with finding women my age. I was 27 when I got sober. So like I was young. I was going to be and I got pregnant 6 months after I got sober. So I was now this new mom. So there was just older women, but there
Mhm.
weren't a lot of women my age. And that was challenging.
Yeah. And I know it's variable. I've been told by some people that, they found this
Right.
great
For sure.
AA group and that was great for her in New York City, for example.
Hmm.
Yeah, for me and maybe others like me, I would still be drinking if that was the only option, if I'm honest. So I do have a really great appreciation for people like you, like Holly Whitaker, like Ann Dowsett Johnson, that have been ahead of us and opened the path
Yes.
because, that was the only way. And I think my mind is too blocked that like that's not valid. That's
Mm.
what because we've been told that so much. We're still told that 100%
Mm.
pretty much by our alcohol-centric society. Although now there's this little stream saying, hey, we're actually trending over here.
Uh,
And in fact, great things to some of those people that you mentioned, and like Chris Marshall for
mm.
starting the first alcohol-free bar in Austin,
I
Texas.
I know. I cannot wait to get to one. I can't wait to get to one.
Yeah, you
It's so
will.
cool. I mean, and I've talked to a few people who were in the industry. The woman who started Crisp and Crude, she's been on the podcast. She's lovely. And another Zero Proof Nation, I think is her
Oh,
company.
Laura, yeah,
Yeah, Laura Silverman,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
She's been on the podcast. So I love all of this work. I love it. It's brilliant. And like you were starting to say, I think like we didn't have, I mean, the non-alcoholic options that we had when I was growing up were like O'Doul's, and like that was it for many years. And then the other ones started to creep in. But for me personally, for the kind of I call myself an alcoholic. I'm I understand that lots of people use substance use disorder and all kinds of other problem drinkers.
Whatever works.
We all have our different names. For me, it's not a problem. That's just what that's what I identify as for me.
Yeah.
And but for the kind of alcoholics, I was like, I was not interested at all in having any kind of non-alcoholic beer. It just wasn't gonna be good for me. Like I didn't want to taste beer, you know?
Right. And that is, kind of a tradition of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? That you shouldn't do that. And, that's certainly fine, right? For some people to prefer not to.
Yeah. I mean, for me,
Yeah.
it was just, that's the thing. And I understand. So it's been cool though, to see the evolution of this industry and how, I just picked up some, recess products. Have you seen those?
Yes.
Okay. So they were in
Love that.
Sprouts. I was like, okay, cool. Like I have been seeing the ads, but I had never tried it. So I was like, I'll grab this. And I love anything that's like grapefruit flavored or berry. So they had those. So I was like, I'll grab this. And it has all kinds of like botanicals in it and essential oils and plants. And to me, like that's all amazing. So that's like kind of fun. Like I was, okay, this is like a health drink kind of. It also looks like in a beautiful package,
Right.
so you're
Right.
having this product that looks like a cocktail.
Right. Right. And so it is kind of fun. And, like you said, you've been at this a long time. And actually, if I think back, I've actually been kind of thinking about it for a long time.
Mm-hmm,
And I
mm-hmm.
know I've read in a few places that maybe on average, sometimes it takes about a decade, and if you think back, like of the thoughts that you've thought of, maybe you didn't even think them out loud, but they were in your mind, like maybe before going to a barbecue, it was like, I think I'm just going to quit drinking. Never said it out loud. Things like that. But, let's just say going back to around a dozen years ago, when I would first take a break for a week or a month, there was nothing available when I was out. I'm really, I describe myself as an extroverted introvert.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fairly social. One of my very favorite things is going out to dinner with friends and family. And I enjoy good food that I don't have to cook. And
Same.
but yeah, and always in the past, like wine was a big part of that. So when I was taking a break for a week, it was a little bit of a dread, right? To go even out to dinner. Because there was going to be water. That's what we have for you. Or, juice, maybe orange juice or apple juice at the most. So, fast forward today, even I'm telling you, in the last 6 months, right, Shelby, my grocery stores look very different than they did 6 months ago.
Yeah.
It's
It is
still
astounding. I was just in a restaurant. We like to eat good food too. And we go out to like, not fancy, but like nicer restaurants pretty regularly. And twice in the last week ish, I was in restaurants. Well, one I have been to prior, it has a whole mocktail section, which I love. And they have a grapefruit drink there that's called Tickle Pink that I just love so much. And it's delicious. It comes out, it's beautiful. It's stunning. So I was like, okay, I can't wait to have that. So I knew that was there. And then I was in another restaurant and had a brand new menu, and they had a whole section too, which I was really surprised to see. And it's been fun because it's not even that hard. You're just making a drink doesn't have alcohol. So they're doing the same thing that you would
right.
already be doing potentially. We just don't put in the booze.
Sure.
So it's not even a big deal.
Yeah. And I think that I have come to discover that with practice, and it does take a little practice, Shelby, it's not so much about having your wine when you're out to dinner. It's really about the experience.
Yes.
It's about connecting with friends. I think, when we connect with friends, whether it's one-on-one, reaching out, that's a kind of a dopamine hit, right? That really brings us, the warm and fuzzy feelings. It's more about that. It can be a challenge though, when you first get to it. It's an obstacle for people.
Mm-hmm.
But
go ahead.
yeah. Well, when you go to a restaurant that has something nice, something adult for you on the menu, it's 100% of a game changer for me. I know it's not for everybody, but for me, I live in Southern California. Our alcohol-free culture, you would think that we would be like the red hot first ones on the market because, people probably associate Southern California with, being health conscious, uh, with kale. Maybe, you associate Southern California with people eating kale salads. I don't know. I do actually love kale.
Mhm.
I've always pretty much loved kale, and I loved before drinking wine. So I I don't know, I just feel like it's kind of that beachy vacation culture, that it's a little bit slower to catch on. Although, I had the discussion with Chris Marshall before when we were in Austin with him. And I'm like, man, your culture in Austin is like way ahead of us in Southern
Mhm.
California, which, to me was a little bit surprising at first.
Hmm.
And you know what he said to me? He's like, well, how do you think that got started? So somebody has to start it. He's been working there and, boots on the ground, week in, week out, talking about it, having these pop-ups around the country, as well as in, Austin regularly all the time. And that certainly builds a community, builds a culture. I think that's how it starts.
I agree with you. And then it's catchy, right? You start seeing other women or people doing that. And then look, now it's in Sprouts, I was literally in my grocery store and I was like, oh, look at this. This is so fun.
Yeah, they have some. Sprouts is one of the big ones too here. That last time I was there had a whole end cap section. So can you even imagine what it's going to be like in dry January 2024?
Right. Right. I
Yeah.
mean, and besides just having access, I mean, I do think that, and I'd love to talk about this for a minute, the identity piece, the identity shift really that
Yeah.
occurs when somebody becomes alcohol free. There's a process there, right? It's a transition that happens. It's like anything else, right? It's like going from being unhealthy to healthy, right? Or
Mhm.
being not being a mom to being a mom. There's these big transitions, right? So this was who you were. These are the
Right.
things you were doing. These are the people you were hanging out with and where you were going. And now you're not doing this thing. And that is in our society, even though it is shifting in a lot of ways, it
Mhm.
still can be for many people a very big deal. For some people, I think it's not that big of a deal. Um, but for most of us, I think it is, mostly because the other people, tell me how you feel about this, the other people around us who are used to us being a certain kind of way,
Yeah.
are used to that, right? And then we transition into like, oh, we're going to order a mocktail, and they're like, what are you doing? Like,
Right.
who are you? Oh, what are you,
Yeah.
pregnant? Are you
Right.
this? Are you like, it starts with all of the like, why would you do that? And in my opinion, a lot of that is happening for a variety of reasons, right? People don't like change. That's one thing. People
Mhm.
don't like something in the system to change. Also, people don't like anything that they're doing to be called out or pointed at. And so now, if you were with a bunch of drinkers regularly and say maybe they also are like problem drinkers, now if you're not doing that anymore, they're automatically going to be looking at themselves and being like, even if it's at the unconscious level, like
Sure.
maybe there's something wrong with my drinking, or she thinks there's something wrong with my drinking, right? And they're maybe never
Mhm.
say that out loud, but it's going to be there. It's going to be in that room.
No,
Um,
why would you want to say that out loud, Shelby? Um,
I, I mean, it's there, right?
yeah, it's yeah, that is a thing. And right, because it takes some time. I'm gonna say for me, for most people, it takes some time. And if you are a drinker and then you decide, okay, I'm not gonna drink for this period of time, and it seems pretty much like I'm a non-drinker at this stage, right, Shelby? I was always one there, it's kind of hard to say like I'm never gonna drink again, but
Mhm.
for now, it just really seems like, yeah, I am
Today,
I
you're
am
a
a
non-drinker.
non-drinker,
Yeah.
and I am enjoying again this lifestyle more than the other lifestyle. So I think, from the outside, some of our friends might think, oh, okay, Susie just stopped drinking. And while, in fact, I guess that is true in the most simplistic form, right? There is a little bit more to it than that.
Well, we know
Is
that.
that not true? But also, there's a little bit more to it than that, because what have we been doing? We've been learning more about alcohol. We have been kind of, in a way, for me and some others, it was taking a trial of this alcohol free to see what things I enjoyed about it. And at the same time, learning about it, at the same time, trying out, for me, some alcohol free beverages that were pretty fantastic. While you're doing all this, your friends that were your drinking buddies are unaware of this whole piece that you're working on. So I do feel like also, we need to be pretty gracious to those that, perhaps maybe we haven't really let them in on that whole process with us. So, it's going to take them some time to adjust to you not drinking, and you kind of have to navigate through that. It's not always easy.
Right. And then, I mean, honestly, just to be brutally honest about it, there are people who lose friends because of this. And I mean, that's a real part. I've had lots of conversations with women here on the show about that transition, that like some people, for a variety of reasons, and it might have take time, right? You might just naturally fall out of way with somebody because you don't want to do the same kinds of things anymore. You don't want to go out until 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night and just keep drinking or whatever and going bar hopping. Maybe you don't want to go to wineries and just get plastered. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why that might change. And some of it also has to do socially with just the fact that some people aren't going to understand, and they don't have to. That's the beauty of this. They don't
Right.
have to understand it. It's for us. And we also don't need to be placing our views on other people or expecting them to change. It's kind of,
Mhm.
that's not how it works, right? If we choose to go out and act in a different way, we're allowed to do that, knowing that the other people around us are not going to be doing the same thing.
Right. It's a little different focus,
Yeah.
perhaps, when you go out. It's focused on your family, it's focusing on your friends group. So if the focus is 100% on alcohol, I'm probably going to find that, maybe I'm not going to participate with them, or, maybe I'm going to pop in early for an hour or two,
Right.
and then, you know,
Head
have
on.
to check out because I've got
Yeah.
CrossFit in the morning.
Those things change, right? I mean, we start to learn kind of our new rules for engagement, right? We start to learn like, oh yeah, we don't stay past 10 o'clock, or we don't go to certain things. And that's just for our own mental health, truly. I mean, it might not even be because we're like worried that we would pick up a drink or anything. It's more just for our own contentment to know that I don't need to be discontented tonight. I would rather just be at peace and have carefree time with my friends, and then
Right.
we leave early.
And as we're all, every day, we're aging a little bit more, right? So, I think some of our friends, Shelby, are starting to think more too, like maybe I do want to cut this down sometimes. And, I think if we think about it in the way that actually there's probably a lot of people, more people that are envious of you than that are feeling disdain, right? Because if you think back, for yourself, when you thought about, oh, yeah, I should just quit drinking, or, maybe you weren't serious about it, but I do think that is a thing that if you ask most people, would you like to drink less or more? You know, Probably most people would say, oh, it might be a good idea if I drink a little less.
Hmm. And then there's some people who just naturally just don't drink, or they just are very like, I just had a client earlier and she said I drink like twice a month, and it's like 2 drinks, that would be a lot for her. And so
Yeah,
like they just don't have that same propensity for substance use that we do, and that's just the bottom line of things.
right, right. And I have some friends like that too, and
Mhm.
I say, Yeah. You don't need
Lucky
to really
you.
pay attention to this. Like, you don't really drink, is what I say. It's like my good friend William Porter I think would kind of say, they're not really drinkers, Shelby.
Yeah.
They don't really like drinking,
Yeah.
actually. If they just have a drink, maybe once a month, and they probably don't even finish it.
Exactly.
I've talked to quite a few people that drink simply to be social. Like I literally just had a conversation last week. This gal, she, she doesn't really drink, but she said, sometimes I order a drink just to have a drink in my hand.
Mm-hmm.
That is alcohol. And I take a few sips and there's nothing else. I want to be part of the equation. And, I've certainly felt that way too, but I, typically finish the drink and ordered another one.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that happens. And, for young people, I know I've talked to a couple of people. I'm actually working with the University of Wisconsin with a group there and on the business level. And, it's really part of the culture, they tell me. So, for example, in college, and for example, when you're on a new job and you have a team building activity, the easiest thing for them to plan is a happy hour. And typically there's not options. I do think in really just a few years, that will be different, where there is a mocktail, where there's an alcohol-free wine, which, for example, is going to be around 20 calories versus 120. When not that calories are the most important, but it is a selling point. It tastes good. It's very light. You can enjoy that one out, and it's coming. It's coming.
I've
So
seen it. I've seen it too. I mean, even the alcohol-free liquors now, I forget the brand names, but I've seen them on menus. I had one
yes.
actually when I was in LA to do my TEDx at the conference, and
Oh, that's amazing.
it was very cool. But for me, and this is just my part of this, my story. But for me, because of the kind of good alcoholic that I am, right? That's not my drink, right? I cannot have a drink served in a bourbon glass with a square cube.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because my brain gets activated by that. And so I did drink it, of course, because I
But that's
now I
not.
want it. But for me, it was like certainly was a very alcoholic experience. And so I personally am not going to engage in that because that's not for me. But I love having the recessed cans in my fridge, or the Crispin Crude, or going to get a Tickle Pink, because when I go somewhere, like you're just mentioning, I have 2 kids in college, and it is extremely big part of the culture, drinking. But if they don't want to, or if they wanted to be young professionals and take something to a barbecue or a party, you can bring your little cooler full of these beautiful cans or bottles, and have something that looks definitely like you're socializing and drinking like your fellows. And that's
Right.
a pretty cool place.
And if you're uncomfortable, you can quietly pour it into a glass that looks the same, or take your Yeti, as a young person. But yeah, I just think that once it is out there and on the menus as an option, I think a lot of people in the restaurants and venues are not realizing that people will pay the same price that they would pay for a cocktail for a sophisticated zero proof experience. So
I
whether
agree with you.
yeah.
And I also think it's just really good modeling. That's what's really happening. I mean, what's happening, look at Sober Sis movement. I mean, she has thousands of women in her program now. And they're all women just that started very similar to you, where they're just kind of not sure. They're like, I think I'd like to do this. And then they're dipping their toe in and they're trying to figure it out. But they didn't have a support system. They didn't have a place to go, and they certainly didn't have the drinks to go with it. But now, as other people like our friends we just mentioned, who are just not drinkers, right, show up and start ordering these drinks, or they talk about it with their friends, and they're really normalizing this zero proof experience, then it's just modeling for other women that this could be and you don't even have to be a problem drinker to enjoy this experience. You could just want to be a part of the experience of the social situation you're in. And so when we do that, we show other people it's okay, and that there are really cool options for us when we're out, but also not just that, but the feeling of that we can experiment with what it's like to be alcohol free, and have a lot of support in that.
I think you bring up a really important point there, Shelby, which is the connection and the connection with like-minded women or like-minded people, however that works for you. So, yeah, like for example, I mean, when I came back from that first trip, I was out and like, okay, I had some crazy experiences with servers. I know not everybody has, but I was told some crazy things like, okay, that won't really taste like anything. Are you sure you want that? The best I can do is lemonade.
Wow.
And again, it's changing a lot because people are educated. So I kind of came home. That's really, I think, the uncomfortableness, the awkwardness of socializing alcohol free for me. Of what I hear from a lot of people over and over again is I feel like the other. I feel like the lone wolf when I'm the only one at the party not drinking. You may or may not be, because I think, now that you perhaps aren't imbibing, sometimes we notice other people. And you and I both know that they're noticing what we're doing because sometimes they come up and talk to you about it, and they share, some challenges or something they might be interested in trying. And, that's fantastic. But for me, I think it's really important to connect with like-minded people, whether it's in person or online. And even, without knowing it, that's how we kind of birthed the first Sober in the City dinner experience, which was here in downtown Long Beach. It was supposed to be the festive end of Dry January 2022, instead of like okay, it's over, let's drink alcohol. So, we had like a multi-course dinner and we had alcohol-free cocktails available. We also had sparkling water and so on, but it was super special and amazing. And even since that time, like that was only not even 2 years ago, it's already changed so much. And, we had a great time. We kept going. We had Carolina of Euphoric Alcohol Free drive up from San Diego. And, she's just full of positivity. And yeah, she's kind of a driving force. I'm sure you know her too. But we decided, okay, we've got to keep going with this because, well, it's great. I still love my friends and family and want to be a part of their social experience too. But for me, it's really important to also connect. And for me, it's important to connect in person as well, and socially. And so we've continued to grow the Sober in the City experience. In fact, it's grown into kind of an entire weekend of activities, which, it's like, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So,
Your next one's in February in Tampa, which is amazing. Great place to
yes.
be in the middle of winter.
Right. Yeah. So we just started open tickets for that just recently. So we're really excited about that. We actually just had a meeting about that this morning. So Friday night is going to be kind of a pink flamingo themed. But an interesting thing is that some people are saying, I'm really nervous. I want to come. I want to have a part of this experience, but I'm all by myself. So what I want to tell you is that over 60% of the brave people that come and attend come absolutely on their own, 100%. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
I mean, talk about, a confident, sober woman
Right.
signing up to come on a trip all by themselves.
Yes.
That's huge. So one of the things that we've added in because of that is we have like a solo social on Friday. So that's just for the people that are attending solo, just to kind of ease you in. And it's super casual. It's not like I mean, I would tell you what we do, and it doesn't even sound like a big deal, but we've gotten really good feedback on it. And Friday's going to be a lot about, just easing in, connecting. We have some great people helping us. Keola Rains is going to be there, and Heather Lowe of Ditch the Drink and Meg Geiswhite are coordinating that whole experience. So we're not 100% sure what's going to happen. We know there's going to be movement. We know there's going to be some social mixers as well. And, they're kind of drumming up some things that are really aligned with experiencing a trip to a typical American city that you might think of doing all alcohol free.
That's wonderful. I can't wait to hear about it. It's going to be amazing. And those women are also doing amazing things, some of which I am familiar with. I know Meg's going to be on the podcast here soon, so you can check her out here as well.
Oh, yay.
And I just love this. I think it's brilliant because, like we started the conversation off with, that alcohol, we know what it truly is, right? We know the history of it. Holly does a great job of explaining that, and then how things changed and became marketed to women specifically. We know that it's where it comes from and what it's made of and what it does to the body. We know all of these things. Yet we live in a society that truly does worship alcohol. Right? I mean, it's all over the place. You mentioned it in the marketing. It's everywhere. You can't go to a first birthday party or even a funeral, right? Without alcohol being everywhere.
Right.
And so this opportunity for us to get back to normalizing not drinking and also all of the feelings which we didn't even get into, which is a whole nother episode, right? Around that, the numbing out, the wanting to escape your life, all of the things that come from why we want to have mommy wine time and glitter cups at soccer games, and so all of that stuff is a part of this journey too. And I don't want to minimize that, because that is so major, but the socializing piece just gets a lot easier when we have fun and exciting and beautiful options that are just like our fellows, and then when we have gatherings like yours that are specifically designed around alcohol-free lifestyles for people to come together and share and cry and laugh and share stories and do all the things that we need to do. Is, I think, especially coming off of, COVID times, and just our world is a little bit,
we're figuring it out,
I guess is the word that's coming to my mind. And there's a lot of disconnection. There's a lot of division, right? And so when we can kind of put that stuff to the side and come back together, it's just beautiful. So I really would thank you so much for your time and your talent and your expertise. And I want you to share how people can get a hold of you if they do want to reach out.
Oh, thank you so much, Shelby. This was a lot of fun to connect with you. And I would love to talk to you about whatever is on your mind. I am mostly on Instagram at Zero Proof Experiences. And my website, I'm sure you'll put it in the show notes, zeroproofexperiences.com. And I just want to encourage you, because I know that for me, and probably many of your listeners have gone on trips, but for a lot of us, it's just a really big obstacle. And what has been resonating in my head over and over again lately is, we're not staying home. I really think that a trip, a vacation, even a dinner out, it can be more, not less, alcohol free.
I totally agree with you. And I'm just thankful. I'm thankful for you and Peggy and all the women who are doing this work and just paving the path for our young people, right? For our young people to come up in a time where alcohol-free living is normal, that is just as normal as being a drinker. And that they have choices in that, and that they can always at any time be like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I just don't feel like I'm just going to have this. Like, they don't have to go out and have a drink. They can just go out and be with their friends or their family. And it's a beautiful thing. So thank you so much again for your time. I'll make sure everything is in the show notes below, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon. We'll keep in touch.
Thanks, Shelby. Have a great day.